Yeah. Family, y'all. Just keep it tight, keep it tight, keep it tight. Oh, right. Yeah. Here we go.
So in Plato's thought, we have this theory of the forms. These forms are the ideas, this word that's used interchangeably. So let's explore his doctrine of the forms. First of all, we understand that the universal is the common nature that is shared by all of the individuals. So of all of the individuals in this room, they all have something in common that makes them human beings. And the same for any group of things that are good, for instance. The Athenian constitution is good. Becky is a good cook. Angelita is a good judge. All these individuals have something in common. And so the universal definition is what is shared by all of those individuals. When a plurality of individuals have a common name, they have a corresponding idea or form. So all of the people in this room have this common name, human being, okay? So that means they all have a corresponding form. We apprehend objective essences in universal concepts. So these universal concepts, there's nothing subjective about them, where one person could see it one way and one could see it another way. No, they're objective, so that anyone who looks at those would agree on what it is that we're seeing there. Universals must be real. Why? Because how could we grasp them if they aren't real? So these universal definitions, Plato just presumed that these things like good or beauty or justice, with a capital G, B, and J, that those things are real, because otherwise, how could we grasp them if they weren't real? Do we invent these things like the good? No. Plato's argument would be that we discover them, but we don't invent these things. We discover absolute goodness or absolute beauty. These objective essences or ideas or forms, and so we use these two words interchangeably. Sometimes we'll see Plato refer to them as forms, other times as ideas. But essentially how it is that these objective essences, these other things are subjective, right? The Athenian constitution being judged as good, that's a subjective judgment, but it's made by people who know what the good is in light of the good with a capital G. So interesting that Plato often implies the existence of a separate world of transcendent forms or ideas, which is why we use these words, the transcendental or the metaphysical, right? It's that which is beyond the physical. Somewhere there's this good with a capital G, beauty with a capital B, justice with a capital J, etc., that these things live somewhere, that these things are found somewhere in some other world. Plato suggested that they abide in some unchanging heaven of their own, where they're not subjected to change. Anything here on earth is subject to change, right? Our bodies are subject to change. Our bodies are growing and or not. And it's these things that are not subject to change. In his work, The Phaedo, Plato suggests that the soul existed in a transcendental realm before its union with the body. Follow me now. In this dualism, we have the soul and we have the body. Which came first? Your soul. So even before your soul came into a body at conception, your soul existed. Where did your soul exist? How interesting. In this transcendental realm, your soul knew the good with the capital G. Your soul knew beauty with a capital B. Your soul knew justice. Your soul knew all of these things. So what does that mean for life? Life is simply a process of trying to remember those things, to recollect those things, and to judge the things that we see as good or beautiful in light of that good, in light of that beauty that your soul once knew before being joined to its present body. In the Timaeus we spoke of how it is that was one of the works that Plato wrote in old age, and how it was that in that work we talk about the demiurge. So what is the demiurge? The demiurge is this creative force in Plato's late works, where how it is that the demiurge forms things in this world, and how does it form things? According to the forms and the ideas. So the demiurge uses the forms as sort of models to create the things that exist. What do critics say about Plato's thought, all of this transcendental philosophy? They say how interesting that Plato seems to be duplicating the real world. We have this world that we know of, the physical world, but now he's creating this metaphysical world, this world that's beyond the physical, where these metaphysical or transcendental things reside. It's almost like he's creating this other world of ideas. He also fails to explain the relation between the sensible things and the ideas. So what's the relationship between this good thing, Becky is a good cook, what's the relationship between Becky and the good cooking that she does with this good with the capital G? What's the relationship there? Another criticism, Plato fails to explain the relationship of ideas to one another. So not only does he fail to explain the relationship of the form to those things here on this earth that are good or beautiful, but also the relationship of these forms to one another. What's the relationship of the good to beauty, for instance? Plato never tells us. The critics point these out. The Symposium, another work that Plato wrote then, is how it is that from contemplation of beautiful forms or bodies, we ascend to the contemplation of beauty in souls. So we see beautiful things, right? We see good and beautiful things. From that we go from the beautiful things that we see to the contemplation of beautiful souls. Then we go up to another level of science, contemplating the beauty in this wide ocean of beauty, and contemplating the lovely and majestic forms which it contains, until we reach this ultimate beauty, this absolute beauty with a capital B. So it's almost like this ladder, if you will. The medievals would have fun with this. People like Bonaventure were Neo-Platonists. They would take this Platonic thought, this thought of Plato, and see how it is that sort of like in prayer and contemplation, we sort of go from beautiful things to beauty with a capital B, which is God. In the Symposium he writes, and this is rather extended, but we reach contemplation of beauty with a capital B, which is what? And then he goes into an extended explanation. It's eternal. Beauty with a capital B is eternal, unproduced, didn't come from anything. It's indestructible. It's neither subject to increase nor decay, so it never changes. It's not partly beautiful and partly ugly. It is entirely beautiful. It's beauty with a capital B. There's nothing ugly in it. It's not at one time beautiful and at another time not. It's always been beautiful and always will be beautiful. It's not beautiful in relation to another. It's absolute beauty. It's not here beautiful and there ugly. It is beauty everywhere. It's not beautiful in the estimation of some people and deformed in that of others. We can all agree that this is beauty with a capital B. All other things are beautiful through a participation in it. So that beautiful butterfly or that beautiful sunset you saw, why are they beautiful? Because they participate in beauty with a capital B. With this one condition, that although they are subject to production and decay, it never becomes more or less or endures any change. Beauty with a capital B never becomes more beautiful or less beautiful. There's no decay, no growth, anything like that. There's no change. Beauty simply is. Beauty is, good is, justice is. These forms and ideas are. They simply are and always have been, according to Plato. So the beauty with a capital B is that thing from which all beautiful things derive their beauty. Absolute beauty is real, independent of particulars. Independent of particulars, I mean, we have the beautiful butterfly and we have the beautiful sunset. Yeah, but beauty exists apart from them. It's unchanged and abiding. It's inaccessible to the senses and apprehensible only by the intellect. We can see the beautiful butterfly, we can see the beautiful sunset. Can we see beauty with a capital B? Can't see it. But what we do is we see all of these beautiful things, and out of that we conclude that there must be this form, this idea of beauty, according to Plato. In the Republic, he talks about how it is that the true philosopher doesn't seek to know many beautiful things, but to discern the essence of beauty and goodness embodied to various degrees in particular beautiful and good things. So philosophers are not so interested in the beautiful butterfly or the beautiful sunset or the beautiful person or anything else, in so much as we're interested in what it is those beautiful things have in common, which is they're sharing in absolute beauty. The absolute is the absolutely perfect and exemplary pattern of all things. The absolute is transcendent. It transcends even being itself. So these things are not part of the physical world. They're transcendent. They're metaphysical realities. They're above the physical. We can see and taste and touch all of these beautiful things. We can see the beautiful sunset and see the beautiful butterfly. We can't see beauty with a capital B because it's transcendent. But it's also immanent. Oh, it's like God, right? God is transcendent, but God is also immanent. What does it mean that the absolute is also immanent? That beauty is embodied in those things, like the butterfly. Beauty with a capital B is in that butterfly, and is in that sunset, and is in everything else that is beautiful. So for Plato, then, we can conclude that good and beauty and the one and many words that we use are all the same for Plato, and that all of these forms or ideas owe their being to the one. The one with the capital O is the unifying principle of all of these forms, of the good and the beautiful. So we can't speak of the one, says Plato, because this one, God, Christians call it, right? The one, it's hard to find the maker and father of the universe, and having found him, it's impossible to speak of him at all. Which is why we've spoken before of the Greeks had a great word, mysterion, which translates into English as mystery. What does mysterion literally mean? To keep the mouth shut. Mystery, once you start to speak about mystery, is no longer mystery. Mystery is that about which it's better for us just to shut up, because we can never capture the mystery, which is essentially what Plato was saying here, right? Once, it's hard to find the one with a capital O, but once we find the one, it's impossible to speak of the one. Which is why Plato really didn't write any works on the one, because it's impossible. It's like writing a book on God. You know, God is this transcendent reality, this metaphysical reality. How can you, if you try to wrap words around God, your words will always be inadequate. Better for you to keep the mouth shut, because once you try to distill this mystery for a child, for instance, you tell a child a certain idea, and then what happens? They cling to that idea rather than going beyond it to the metaphysical reality. There are parents who tell their children that they're going to see God on Sunday, and then what do the kids think? That I'm God. Those poor kids. Right?
There's God.
And so what happens is they get this idea in their head, and then instead of going for that metaphysical reality, they're stuck on this sensible thing, this physical thing that they believe God to be. Yikes. Neo-Platonists would later speak of the forms as the thoughts of God. How it is that God essentially has these ideas. This is not Plato, this is the Neo-Platonists. So after Plato, there would be these people who take his thoughts, Christians who take his thoughts and try to make sense of them in light of our Christian faith. So they saw these as sort of like being the ideas or the thoughts of God. They exist outside of God, apart from God, but how it is that they come from God. They emanate from God, from the one. Nietzsche, we've probably heard of Nietzsche, famous atheist in the 20th century. What was his big criticism of Plato? Here Plato is, he's just an enemy of everything that we see in this world and experience in this world. He has created a whole transcendental or metaphysical world that does not exist, according to Nietzsche, which is in contrast to what we have here. He creates this world that is out there somewhere, where these forms reside, and that was his big complaint, his big criticism of Plato. Was Plato hostile to the world? I think modern day Christians would say he wasn't hostile to the world. He was just trying to create order He's just trying to create order here, trying to say how it is we can take everything that we've experienced and bring it together into some ordered way of understanding it all.